Good afternoon and welcome to our Scale Up Stateside show, where today we are going to be focusing on contract recruitment in the USA and how to seize the opportunity. For those who haven't joined us before, I am Amy Davis, Managing Director of PGC Group. We specialise in supporting recruiters expand to the US and also in providing employer of record services for their contractors and clients. Today, joining me is a very special guest. We're really excited to have him on board today. And I've had the pleasure of working with him for just near 2 years now. So I'm excited to introduce Ben Broughton, founder and CEO of Primis. This is a guy who has proven himself not once, but twice in both the UK and US markets. But before that, Ben's career started 23 years ago in recruitment when he joined SThree, setting up and running offices for SThree across Birmingham, Leeds and Reading. Since then, Ben went on to be a shareholder of Premier Group and opened offices in New York and Austin and generated more than £30 million in revenue. Now he's gone on to found another hugely successful business in Primis, and in 2 short years, he's scaled the business, is now in both the UK and the US with a £5.5 million turnover and 2.6 million in gross profit, which is a phenomenal result in such a short time. So there's no better voice of authority on just how to build and scale a contract book in the US than Ben. So, hey, Ben, that was a big introduction, wasn't it?
Wow. Where do we go from there? Thank you, Amy. I know my head went out the door. Thank you.
Yeah, it's all downhill from here.
Fair.
But seriously, Ben, thanks for joining us today. We've got quite a lot of people who've actually registered, which is brilliant. And I want to make sure we, do it justice because we've got a lot to get through and in just 30 minutes. So what we're going to try and cover for everyone today is what actually is the US market like through, a recruitment business leader's eyes, what it's like to operate in, the good, the bad, and is there any ugly? We'll find out. And we also want to look at what it takes to build out a recruitment business in the US and how to gain momentum in performance. So really excited to get through. Now, usually we do get questions as we're running through the show. So if you do have any, we're more than happy to answer those live. You just need to pop them in the comments or the chat function, and we'll do our best to answer as many as we can without distracting from the agenda that we've set before us. But don't worry, if we don't answer your question, we will come back to you after the episode's finished. So let's jump in and waste no further time. And I thought it'd be good just to start with a very high level, looking at the size of the recruitment contract market. I think anyone who, follows PGC or any of our team on LinkedIn will know by now that we tell everyone the US is the biggest recruitment market globally. It dominates with a 34% revenue share. But of that, what actually accounts for in contract recruitment? Well, last year, the US market generated $218 billion in revenue in recruitment. And actually 89% of that was in contract recruitment alone. So it's a huge market. And most of you listening may or may not really understand the benefits to your recruitment business of building out a contract business. But there are many benefits, such as quicker fill times in the US market, higher margins of 30% plus, long-term reoccurring fees over time, and ultimately an increased business valuation. So Ben, is it really as good as it sounds?
Yes. If you're not in the US, go tomorrow. Yeah, and just looking at our business, some of the key stats, takeaways, our average GP per day on a UK business contract book is £85 per day. In the US, it's £140 per day. Our average contract margin in the UK is 19. In the US, it's 32. So, I mean, those figures just on our books alone, show that the quality of business you can get out there is so much higher than the UK market as a start, basically.
Yeah. Brilliant. Love it. You've obviously been in the US for some time now across 2 different recruitment businesses. How does the market look now versus when you started out in the US?
Yeah, I think for me, I love the US market purely because I think it's still very relationship based, whereas the UK I kind of find it quite transactional now. Obviously, in terms of my opinion on the market right now, I think we've been through an incredible 2 years, and we're now kind of back to where we were kind of pre-COVID levels. Like there's still companies hiring, there's still so much business out there. It's a little bit harder to find it. That's all. And I think that's very much where we are right now in terms of the UK and the US market as a whole. But for me, the US market, very relationship driven. You can really get some good partnerships with clients. And I think once you get in with a company, do a really good job for them. It's not about a race to the bottom in terms of margins, which you can get sometimes in the UK. It's very much about the quality of service, the level of service, obviously finding the best talent. And, the clients that you work with in the US, if you do a good job for them, you will keep them, for the foreseeable, as long as you keep delivering a good service to them. Whereas I think sometimes in the UK, as I said, it can be a little bit, well, these guys are 15%, race to the bottom kind of thing. That just doesn't tend to happen in the US market.
Yeah, brilliant. What would you say are some of the other kind of key differences that you've experienced between the two markets?
I think obviously retained business in the US on the perm side, there's a lot more of that. And I think they're much more open to looking at projects rather than one or two hires, which is where we've had fantastic results in the US on both the contract and perm side. So on contractors looking at, re-providing teams of people rather than just ones and twos. And, if you can sell that and you have a good product suite when you're going into clients to sell that, I think it's a really beneficial thing for you to have. But yeah, I think the product swing side of things on contract and just the relationship piece, as I said, for us, the clients we got in the US, we got them when we first launched over there, and we're still working with them now because of those relationships that we've built up. In terms of the pitfalls, so the kind of negative sides, I think you've got to be very astute in terms of clients wasting your time in the US. We see that a lot more than the UK. So really measure your ratios in terms of the time spent to fill a vacancy, how many, CVs to placement, time to hire, all that kind of stuff. Be very tight on that stuff for your US business, because we do get a lot of clients that are just in the market looking to see what's out there. They're not necessarily, 100% hiring. So be very crucial, don't be afraid to walk away from business if it's not generating you revenue for the time you're putting into it.
Yeah. Would you say that varies state by state in terms of the approach to doing business? Because I know certainly that's what some of the people I've spoken to have found. Have you experienced that, Ben?
100%. Yeah, 100%. It's like every state has its own individual little connection with their own nuances and their own ways of doing things. So yeah, totally. And I think, for us, the New York, we have a New York office, and people want to get out, they want to meet, they want to go and do cocktails and get to know you and have a relationship with you. Whereas in Austin, it's a little bit more corporate, it's a little bit more, we want to sit around a boardroom table and talk about business rather than the kind of social side. So yeah, we tend to find that is quite different across the states. And obviously, I'm friends with other recruitment businesses that have offices in like Miami and Tampa. And again, it just seems, they all seem to have their own like an individual nuances and how they operate.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's definitely what we see. And I think, understanding the culture of how to do business state by state is key to winning clients over. So, you might think you had a killer strategy that worked brilliantly in New York, but if you try and apply it in another state and you face, what is going on? Even, PGC, we've got offices in New York and Austin. And when we moved to Austin, even things like, getting a lease for an office or buying like equipment, it was like just doing business was like, oh, this just isn't as quick, or we're not getting decisions straight away, or having to chase things. It's just a total different style. So, not just business development, but actually building a business internally, you can definitely feel cultural differences state by state. Okay, well, let's jump on to contract recruitment. We do have an actual question, which is something we get asked a lot. And it'll probably come out a little bit more as we chat. But to engage contractors in the US, we know that there are costs associated, particularly when you're engaging on a W-2 basis. So Martin Renison, hi Martin, has asked, are your margins you've just spoken about, are they after those costs have been deducted?
They are indeed, Martin. Yes, yeah, they are. So obviously, whenever we're quoting a contract rate for a client, we include the PGC fees. So it's making sure that you understand. Obviously, partnering with PGC is an absolute no-brainer. Understand the fees. Understand the fees are different for each state you're working in, and have a list of those so that when you're and equip your consultants with those numbers so that when they're going out and they're talking to clients, they know what the markup should be and what margins you need to be operating at.
And I think to add to that, clients in the US are very used to a transparent way of working. So you're like, this is the pay rate of the contractor. This is the actual cost to engage the contractor compliantly. And then here's what we charge to actually find the contractor. And once they see that breakdown, they're very comfortable with it. So hopefully, Martin, that answered your question. But moving on swiftly then. So, when we think about building a contract book, business development, finding clients, building out your cancer pipeline, all those things, absolutely key. What would you say, having, done that now in the US, what would you say some of the key considerations in terms of what it takes to develop not only business, but great and healthy business in the US?
Yeah, I think so. So first of all, look at who your target clients are. Who use contractors. Obviously, the most important thing is they put in a approach to a client that don't use contractors. So find out who it is that uses contractors. I think one of the things that we found, because obviously we do perm and we do contract, is unless you really go into the business saying we recruit contractors, sometimes they just assume that you're a perm agency. So it's really important that when you're going and you're educating your clients, you do both of those and you have good marketing to support both of them. I love events. I think they're the best way, face-to-face contact, especially now COVID is gone, I think in the past. Get in front of your clients. So for me, we do so many roundtable events where we invite our target client list. We obviously bring along a client who is an existing client, so a good sponsor who will speak great things about us in the room. We ply them with alcohol, which always works well. And we just give a value add. For Primis, one of the main kind of pillars of our business is diversity and inclusion and how we can help businesses, evolve and take them on the journey from where they are to where they want to get to. So we do a lot of events around that side of things, but also I think, get a guest speaker or just something that's a lot of clients in the US like value add. So it's not just, okay, you can get me bums on seats, but also what else can you do for me? So making sure that you have a really good contractor care policy. So you're looking after your contractors, you're making sure that they're happy on site and that's being fed back to the hiring manager. The line manager has worked really well for us in terms of getting more business from the clients in the long term. But yeah, I'm going to different angles. But yeah, for me, the relationship piece, get in front of people, host events, get those roundtables. Even if you're not in the US, do virtual events like this and get 50 people. We've got a head of talent event on the 26th of May where we're just sending like boxes of cheese and wine to people. I think it's like $40. We've got a little sommelier friend of mine coming on doing some wine tasting, but it's just the take up from it has been fantastic. We've got heads of talent from all over the US joining that, from different businesses, some large blue chips, some SMEs, and just creating networks and communities where they can speak freely and obviously get some free cheese and wine has been brilliant for us.
I'm offended I've not been invited, but what I will say, I'm not a head of talent, so I get it. But what I will say is I completely agree with that. I think, events, two things. It helps build the brand's presence in the US, which is huge, and you need to do that, locality by locality. But also it creates trust signals and that value add, as you said, with your potential future clients that you want to work with. So I would totally echo that, that events work really well. So anything else from a business development perspective, you think any differences between NYC and Austin?
We tend to find a lot of initial email then followed by a phone call tends to work better in the US. That's our kind of initial point. Cold calling, as much as it works, I'll never say it doesn't work. It always does definitely work. But I think we get a better response when we give them again a value add. So one of the things with our contracts, we've got rate cards for contractors, so shows in each specific area the different rates for a Ruby developer, a React developer, and asking clients if they want to see that information so they can compare against their existing rate card. Again, looking at that value add and then trying to book a call in off the back of that has been the most really successful kind of business development point from our side. Just going back to the events quickly, we get 45 times ROI off the back of our events. The events don't cost like $2,500 for a dinner event with drinks. And I think we did 4 or 5 events last year, and that was our ROI off the back of them. So it's just
insane.
Yeah.
What about for those who are listening to this show and are right now in the UK trying to develop business from the UK? Because that's where everyone starts, right? Before they head over there. What kind of advice have you got around techniques for that?
So obviously make it look as if you're in the US first of all. So you get your virtual phone number from your cloud call, wherever, your phone provider may be, your virtual office address. So it's on your website. So it looks like you have a presence over there. And then obviously if you don't want to spend the cost of a quick flight over and arranging, a dinner or getting, a week full of meetings, just getting in front of people, because that can be expensive if you're a small business, then I think just going for one of these virtual events, I think is just a key. It's just a really easy win to get, start by something, got some big brands attending, get people attending on that side, and start running those. The next side is obviously then, for me, it's having a niche. So our New York office, for example, we just do data at the moment because of the size we're at, and that's all we're doing. We're just trying to own that space as much as we possibly can. So just one of the things that we've done is we've created a Slack channel for all heads of data within New York. And any client we speak to, we invite them onto the Slack channel. We're basically creating a community of heads of data within the New York area, so that they can talk about, what's important to them, what's exciting for them, but we own it. So we can control the content in there, we can put the stuff in there, and then we invite them to a drinks evening once a month and get them all out together. So stuff like that has been really beneficial for us, just creating communities where you're giving something back to them. And oh, by the way, we happen to do contract and perm recruitment if you need any help. Has worked really well.
Yeah, sounds amazing. Very, very similar to obviously previous conversations we've had about being as niche as you possibly can.
Totally.
So you see big market. I'm just going to go in with a big proposition. Actually, I would say, don't think big, think small, and build out to become big when you're thinking about the US. We have got a couple of questions actually that are coming in, Ben. Well, if you don't mind, we could literally sweep through them really quickly because I'm just conscious we've still got a bit to get through. Martin, who asked before about margins and was probably really pleased with your answer, has also asked about how to access candidates. So what channels have you seen have worked well in the US to find the actual talent?
Yeah, so I see this debate so many times in terms of where to get good talent from in the US. For us, genuinely, it is LinkedIn. That's our main source of candidate traction. We've dabbled with the job boards with Monster and things like that. But LinkedIn, and making sure, obviously with contract, this is why it's so important you have a niche, because you go out and your first thing to do is you build your candidate pool, your contractor pool, and then you go to market once you've got those contractors. So it's very much we get a lot of results from spec-ins, getting a good contractor spec-in out to the market. We're getting good bite-backs from that. Obviously, it's important that with LinkedIn, you have your tools such as your Zoom info or your Lusher, so you can get phone numbers. As we all know, contract so fast. So sending an email, waiting for a response is not necessarily conducive for contract. So getting your plugin so you can get direct access to people's phone numbers, give them a call, get the candidates out the door as quick as you can.
Brilliant. How long's a typical contract in the US? I've got Cheryl who's asked that.
We haven't had anything less than 3 months. I think our average duration is about 7.2 months off the top of my head. That was good, wasn't it? That was good.
Yeah, got there quick. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, let's move on. So what a lot of businesses will do is incubate a team. So they'll start from the UK. They'll have really great recruitment, internal talents that have the potential to go over to the US and establish the office and continue to build. But what's your advice around actually incubating a team from the UK? How have you gone about doing that, and what would your recommendations be?
Yeah, I think for me, whether you're opening, and obviously I've opened a number of offices across my career, it's just cloning the culture of your business, I think, is the most important thing. So even if you're hiring somebody externally to go run your US operation, put them into your UK business for at least 3 to 6 months. It's going to take that time anyway to get your visas sorted and up and running. But just making sure that they're absolutely going over there and cloning the culture internally of your organization is key. I think, you need to get these people, anybody you're sending over, get them, to have a chat with somebody that's been there, done it, whether that be some kind of NED or, just reach out to the network, to the industry, and find people that have gone over and done it, because there are challenges, there are pitfalls. Don't approach it like you're running a business in the UK, because it is different. There are definite differences. And I think a lot of people, that's where they do fall down when they first go to the US, is they just assume it's exactly the same as the UK, and there are definite differences from that side. But I think, what we found is a 200K biller in the UK will do 500K in the US. So, don't be afraid to entice your best people to go over there, because the opportunities just in terms of average fees, average invoices, you'll just make so much more money over there.
Definitely. Brilliant. Love that. Now, part of that, incubating a team and moving people over there, they need to get a visa.
That's such fun.
The immigration system in the US is literally an alphabet. You know, there's lots of options, but the most popular visa program, which is an employer-sponsored program, is the E2 visa. That is the majority and probably the most easiest visa. You know, it's not easy, but it's the one of the easier ones to be able to attain. So tell us about your E2 process very briefly and any advice you would give to others who are starting now and will ultimately go through that process at some point.
Absolutely. So I think first of all is have the right team behind you. So I know that Amy, you've got some great partnerships with people that you recommend. So definitely speak to PGC about that. So have the right people behind you. Don't go rogue and start Googling and finding some trans people to do it for you. Get proven people who are experienced and know what they're doing. You need to look at about 60, 70 Ks worth of investment into your US business. That can be anything from your flights over, your hotels, your travel, if you rent an office, it can be a prepayment for the office for, the next 12 months. If you've got contractors going through PGC, you can use your margins against it. So anything like that, anything like that, anything you've got, recruitment fees, anything, throw it into the mix to get to that 60, 70K to show investment in your US business. And then, you're filling your application. You have to do a full kind of P&L for the 12 months. Proper business plan showing what your markets are, your organogram, your structure, your 12-month, your 3-year, your 5-year business plan, your costs, your spend, everything like you would do if you were starting a business in the UK. And then you submit that. And then about 2 months later, a month later at the moment, I think it is, maybe 1 month, 2 months, you get invited in for your nerve-wracking interview where they ask you 2 questions and then say yes or no. And both times I've done it, it's been yes. So it's quite nerve-wracking to go to the embassy, but don't worry about it. It's good.
Yeah, brilliant. And it's so key. I mean, we will say that, on the outset, whether or not if you're going to go through that process, track any cost, any spend and any sales you're generating from the US. Make sure you track by state as well. You might need that for tax purposes further down the line, because it makes that process of immigration so much easier if you've got that information ready and to hand. And even things like LinkedIn advertising, the cost to advertise roles on the US, split your advertising costs out, because all that contributes towards your irretrievable investment in the US, which will hopefully then make it easier to get that visa approved. We've honestly got loads of questions. I'm like battling between sticking to the agenda, making sure we answer as many questions as we can. So I'm just going to pick up on Henry. Henry's asked, are you more client-led or specialism-led?
Good question. We are, I think it's a mixture of both. Obviously, we look at our specialisms. So, for example, New York are just, we've got a good team there just purely focused on data. So that's the specialism, and then they target the clients that we know use data, contract, and perm. So definitely pick your vertical, pick your niche, and then find which clients are using their skills and go after those. And for us, we have a kind of a BD methodology in terms of how we approach our clients. So initial outreach, and then we'll send them some, we talked about the kind of value add stuff. So salary data, market data. We do reports on the data industry, white papers, try and get them interested by kind of dangling those in front of them. And just, there's I think it's like 7 or 8 points of contact before you finally get that introduction and have that conversation with the client, which you then obviously try and convert into a sale. So that's our kind of route to market.
Brilliant. And then one more. It's actually a great question. Kalpesh, hello. Nice to see you online with us. It almost feels like a question I should ask at the very end, but I'm going to go for it and ask it now. If there's one thing you could do differently when setting up for the USA, what would it be?
Really good question, Kalpesh. Thank you. Good to hear everybody. What I did differently? Crikey. I think going back in terms of a mistake that I've made in the past is US recruitment firms have very different training and ways of going about things to UK recruitment firms. So don't, when you are going out to market and hiring US recruiters who have been brought up in a US recruitment firm, just be very cautious interviewing them. What they see as business development is very different to what we see as business development. So just, don't assume that if somebody comes in and says, I'm a 500K year biller, that's the equivalent of what we assume a 500K year biller is to be. I'm trying to say that in the politest way I possibly can, if that makes
think you handled that perfectly.
Okay, good.
I would add to that the 360 model in the domestic market in the US isn't
Correct.
the equivalent to the 360 model that we have in the UK. So you really do, don't just assume when someone says something that it's exactly the same, always probe, which I'm sure everybody does. Okay, brilliant. Thank you for answering those questions. Now, in terms of choosing a location, we've already mentioned at the beginning, geographically, how big the US is, and think of it as 50 countries. When we think of kind of the revenue that's generated per state, and even if you just look at the GDP alone, there are some states like California that would be the, fifth largest country in the world on its own if you just looked at its GDP. So it's a phenomenal landscape in terms of opportunity and size. And how did you go about being able to really pick not only a state, but a location within that state?
Yeah, totally. So I think for me personally, a slightly different story because I have relationships in those markets. So for me, it was quite an obvious one where I would go. But still, I definitely did my research still and looked at, I think the most important thing is speak to your network, speak to the people in the industry, PGC. You guys have got the data. And when you make a decision like this, it's got to be you've got to look at the data, properly analyze it. So looking at LinkedIn insights, looking at volumes of candidates, looking at job adverts, a number of job adverts within the niche that you're going to be focusing on.
Yeah.
Look at where your talent pool for recruiters is going to come from. So you want to be near, if you're going to be doing graduates and bring them up and train them throughout, then you want to have a good talent pool of people coming from the local graduates, great universities that you can bring from, or if there's competitors in the same space that you can obviously look to headhunt from and bring people into your business from that side of things. Also looking at stuff like living costs, if you're going to be sending people over there, for example, we're relocating people to New York and it's incredibly expensive. But for me, that's worth it because, we've got a good presence in New York and we've got a good client base there. So it's just, there's so many different things you need to consider. Definitely do your own business plan. You have to do all of your ETVs anyway. Definitely do it yourself. Get the facts, get the figures, get the data from incredible people like PGC and other people that have gone out there and launched into the US. We're seeing what I'm seeing on the market now is places like Tampa is, a really big one at the moment. Miami, I think is still good. Austin, I still think is incredible. Absolutely love Austin. I'm sure Amy, you've got a few more that are kind of popping out of the woodwork. There's always something new coming. That's the thing with America. There's always the next thing, really, isn't there?
Yeah. Well, I was about to say, actually, if you were to open up a third location, where would you go?
I'd probably go Tampa.
Florida I think Florida's boomed. It's definitely coming up behind Texas and booming for so many reasons. Obviously, there's tax incentives to your business in terms of being located there, but so much of the talent in the US actually migrated there in COVID due to personal income tax incentives. So, also not to mention sunshine most of the year as well.
Well, that's the thing. You got to factor in your personal situation. Where do you want to have the house, right? That's important.
I mean, I know we were both sitting on a panel at a live event recently, and we spoke about, when you are relocating employees over, you've really got to think about their quality of life and, where they're going to be based. Are they going to enjoy it? Because you need them to be happy. You need them to be thriving for your business to thrive. And so Florida, I'm surprised you got Tampa over Miami, actually, although Tampa's really upcoming for business. A lot of people do opt for the party lifestyle, I'm not going to lie.
Too old for that, I'm too old for it.
You're way past that now, obviously. Anything else just in terms of locations? If you were to...
In terms of... Yeah, I think just comment like, for example, New York, where we've got a good office. I think if, certain people at certain stage of life don't want to live in the hustle and bustle of New York. So, you want to get it right for the individuals that you're putting over into those markets. So think about your team, get the data behind you, do your research. And I think it's also important to look at your niche markets as well before, if you're going to say, right, I'm going to do data, where are the hotspots of data, where are the candidates going? Because as you said, COVID shook America in terms of moving. Yeah, people moved a lot.
Companies and talent,
both. And also people's perspectives. We've got clients in New York now who have HQs in New York, but they're taking talent from all over. So it's massively shook things up, which has obviously been great for the market, the industry, for recruiters anyway.
Yeah, brilliant. I can't believe the time. We're actually nearly out of time. So I do want to ask, what's next for Primis?
World domination, Dr. Evil. We're just, we're growth. We're privately invested, funded business. So we just want sensible growth as we expand. US absolutely continued the growth over there, but UK as well. We've got an amazing London office, Birmingham office. Watch this space, growing our contractors through PGC as much as we can.
Exciting time. Ben, thank you so much.
Thank you, Amy.
Obviously, the insights you shared have been phenomenal. We haven't been able to get through all the questions, so I will go through those. I'll chat to Ben, and we'll make sure that we come back to each of you. If you want to chat more to Ben, I'm sure he'd be happy for you to reach out direct on LinkedIn. But if you're excited by what you've heard today and you want to enter the contract market, then very shortly on the screen will be a QR code and a link, which you can use to book in a session with me or any of the team at PGC, where we'll be more than happy to answer any further questions or give you any more information than what we've discussed on the show today. So thank you everyone for joining. Thank you, Ben. And we will see you next time for our next episode on the Scale Up Stateside with PGC.
Thanks, Amy.